welcome everybody to MTG Rebellion's latest episode. This is going to be episode 12 of the Rebelcast, and today we are presenting the cards from the Explorer Anthologies 3 and Historic Anthology 7. All of the cards that have been previewed so far, we're going to have up on screen for you guys, and we're going to be grading each one, and I'm going to let everybody speak on the cards they feel most relevant speaking on. We've got a cycle of lands here. So we're going to go through those, obviously. But John Ramos has up on screen for us all of the cards from the Historic and Explorer Anthologies. John Ramos, let's go ahead and pull up. Yep, the Explorer Anthologies first. And I'm just going to go down the line first. Let me introduce everybody. First off, we have Optimal MTG, who was here last week. Thank you for joining us. And we also have John Ramos MTG, Luis Dragon MTG, Darth Rictus. What's up? Darth Rictus of the Dark Stream, and with us somebody that I've been wanting to have on here for a while now, actually. Turtlebox, who does a variety of charity streams, MTG content, and some indie variety content as well. Welcome. All right, so let's take a look first at these Explorer Anthologies cards. I feel like the Historic Anthologies is where we're going to have a little bit more of a discussion. That's just how I feel about it anyway. I could be wrong. But let's talk first about the Explorer Anthologies cards. We have a cycle of land cards here. John Ramos, I want you to go ahead and just introduce the card by reading the card name, reading the card text, and then anybody who wants to raise their hand can sort of comment and grade. Basically, I want two things. When you grade these cards, I want two things. Consider what the impact is going to be on the format. Are these cards going to see a lot of play? If they see a lot of play, give it a good grade. And then secondarily, also whether you think that's going to be effective play. Are these cards really going to change the deck? Are these cards really going to impact the deck, impact the format? So consider those things as well. And then third, your own subjective judgment of each of these cards, whether you've played with them in the paper format, variant, or, just how you feel about it. So, John Ramos, what is the first card we have up here?
All right, so first, I'm just going to go through the five, technically four, because one of the lands hasn't been officially spoiled yet, but since all of them have been, Prairie Stream is the only one that hasn't been officially spoiled, but the other cycle of the allied Battlelands have been spoiled. So Canopy Vista, Cinderglade, Smoldering Marsh, and Sunken Hollow have been spoiled. Canopy Vista is a land, forest, plains, basic land types. May tap for a green or a forest or a plains, and it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control two or more basic lands. The same for Cinderglade, Smoldering Marsh, or Sunken Hollow, respectively. Cinderglade taps for green or red. Smoldering Marsh taps for a black or a red. And Sunken Hollow taps for a blue or a black. And Prairie Stream taps for a blue and a white. These lands see some amount of play in Explorer. I'm not sure how good they will be in Historic since we're talking about both formats. But they're needed for Pioneer, for the Explorer to become Pioneer. Not so much for Historic, but maybe for the Lay Down Arms decks that play with Prairie Stream. What do you guys feel about these?
Yeah, I want to, before anybody else comments, I want to, and I'll call on each of you, but I want to say we could grade all of these as one sort of cycle, but the important thing is that each of these represent their respective land types, basic land types. And I think that's significant for, something like Azorius Control, for example, wanting to have all the planes that they can have for something like Lay Down Arms, as has been pointed out. But does anybody want to comment on any of the five possible lands being cycled in here on Explorer? Basically, my question is, are there any decks that these become relevant to right off the rip?
I could start first, I guess.
Go ahead, Optimal.
Prairie Stream is probably the first one that proactively sees play. If you're doing any late on arms kind of stuff with control, right? I've seen Sunken Hollow slip a couple sometimes into rogues. Other than that, though, there's always that, the green white collected company pieces deck with like Archon, Anointed, Recessor, and all that stuff. Sometimes Canopy Vista sees playing that too, but I don't know about Cinderglade or Smoldering Marsh.
I don't really see them in Pioneer list, but I could be wrong. Like the
Is-
other lands, the other two that you were talking about, they do.
Is Valakut in Pioneer?
No,
No.
Okay. I was going to say
Yeah,
that would be the thing
modern.
that would make Cinderglade very relevant, is if Valakut was running around. But without it,
Yeah,
no,
no.
not so much.
keep that out of my format, please.
Scapeshift is legal in Pioneer, right?
It is also legal in Historic, which is why I was saying, hey, keep Valakut out of here.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Some of these we'll see some play. Some of them we're not so sure about. Specifically to so anyone want to comment before we move on to their relevance to Pioneer or Explorer becoming Pioneer? Any of these missing pieces in decks that are going to see more play?
I think Prairie Stream gives a good reason now for people to play more laydown arms. I can't imagine Blue White Control having been relevant. But I guess that's one thing is, we'll get to it later, but Thespian Stage kind of unlocked Lotus Field now.
Yeah. Yeah, I expect that comment coming up. Let's go ahead and move on to the next card. Talk to us about the next card here in the Gruul color set, John Ramos.
So we have Xenagos, God of Revels, 3 colorless, 1 red, 1 green, 6/5 legendary enchantment creature, God, indestructible as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7. Xenagos isn't a creature. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the creature's power. I'm gonna put this together with World Spine Worm, which has also been spoiled because these two cards are really what are the reason why they're here. So World Spine Worm is 3 green, 8 colorless worm, trample, 15/15. When World Spine Worm dies, put 3/5/5 green worm creature tokens into play with trample. I said into play, and am I old? 3/5/5 green worm creature tokens with trample onto the battlefield. Excuse me. When World Spine Worm is put into the graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into the owner's library. So basically, these two are together because they've only been seen in one deck in Pioneer, and that's Creativity. So you Creativity twice, and you put Xenagos and World Spine Worm together. World Spine Worm becomes a 30/15 or 30/30, has haste, and it already has trample, so they deal 30 damage to the face. I guess since I'm already here, for Pioneer, this is relevant. The deck is still there. Doesn't put up as much results as it has done in the past, winning the PT, the last PT that was played in. Now the Creativity players have gone to the Gearhulk version. They try to Traxa. Gearhulk seems to be a little bit more grindy. I expect to see Creativity nonsense in Historic, although I don't know if Xenagos and World Spine Worm are the best, but I know people are going to try it, so I give this a solid grade B.
Hell yeah, I was gonna ask, what's the future of Creativity, and maybe Darkstream comment on this. What's the future of Creativity? Are we going to see more of the Gear Hulk, the blue Gear Hulk, or is there going to be a shift?
I would I would wager at least the first few weeks we'll see the shift over to World Spine Xenagos. It is a stronger, more resilient iteration because we already had the Locust God combined with Sage of the Falls to do that, win on the spot creativity scenario. But this is more resilient. World Spine Worm can't be thought seized out. Xenagos and World Spine are both very difficult to interact with, whereas the other iteration got fucked by a fry. So I do think we're going to see a shift over here. That said, it just depends on where the meta is as to whether Gear Hulk is better or whether combo with Xenagos and World Spine is better.
Thank you, thank you. Uh, Anybody else want to give a grade, comment on this card before we move on to Deathrite Shaman?
I was gonna say, I guess the first couple of weeks people will try messing around again just for nostalgia reasons for Xenagos and Warsfarmer. But I think ultimately long term, Gear Hulk, Magma Opus is or Sublime Epiphany is the go to, right?
I mean, I'm gonna try it just because I've played so much with Sage and Locust God that I've been waiting for World Spineworm and Xenagos because nothing was more annoying than drawing one of them and you can't pitch them to Fable and put it back in your deck or whatever. So I'm gonna try it just because I love creativity in that format. But I think the Gear Hulk Magma Opus Sublime Epiphany version is better than this, just because you have a lot more staying power against the Rakdos decks. Albeit red black mid range though is falling out of favor because Sakdos is so good. So maybe the Xenagos version is better or for this format specifically just because it goes over the top of Cat Oven so easily.
That may be that may be something we have to settle here and now, because how are we feeling about Rakdos mid range? I know it's fluctuated a lot in recent memory, but is Sakdos, because John Remus has brought it up a few times, and I think he's right. Is Sakdos the sort of the dominant version right now, and is Rakdos mid range just really falling out of favor? Does anybody else have any thoughts?
I think
Yes.
they're both just going to go up and down as time goes on, right? They're both very, persistent decks. So it's hard to attack one versus the other, and I think that just might be the way it is.
Sorry, go ahead, TB.
I don't play a lot of Explorer, but I absolutely think Deathrite Shaman is going to make the sack decks significantly more playable. Just so much more playable than just like stock Rakdos.
Yeah, you're hitting exactly on what I was trying to hint at with this discussion. Let's go ahead and jump into it. John Ramos, what does Deathrite Shaman do? And then let's talk about its impact here on the format.
I was gonna give because Darth Stream was about to say something before you.
Oh, mostly I was going to say that Rakdos Sacrifice is extremely well positioned right now because it preys on Rakdos midrange, and Rakdos midrange preyed on a lot of the format. So you're seeing that meta shift, and that's part of why Sakdos has picked up so much steam lately. As to whether or not Deathrite Shaman helps or hinders, I really don't know because I've never played with Deathrite Shaman in a format that lacked fetch lands. So I don't know that it's going to be fast enough or strong enough when it isn't a cracked out Llanowar elf.
Fair enough. John Remus, go ahead and read us the card.
All right, so Deathrite Shaman, one hybrid green or black elf shaman. I just realized in the last 2 weeks that this is an elf, and I've been playing for that long. 1/2, tap, exile a land card from a graveyard, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Excuse me, tap one black tap, exile a target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard. Each opponent loses 2 life. Green, tap, exile target creature card from a graveyard. You gain 2 life. This is banned in Modern because of how good it was with fetches, and it was just very good graveyard hate too. So what a lot of people were dubbing it was a Planeswalker card for 1 mana, because that's basically what it did, is that it had 3 modes and you just spent one of those modes. We don't have fetches. We don't have any of that stuff on Arena. So Historic and Explorer don't have that type of stuff. So I don't know. It's one of the Deathrite Shaman is basically the Siege Rhino of the anthology set. That so far is what it's going to be.
Oh, wow.
It's nostalgia. It's good, and people will play it. And they said they were going to do that. They were going to put a few cards like Siege Rhino that were nostalgic, that were good, and have a lot of history behind it. So that's why I think that's why it's here mostly, because it just doesn't see play in Pioneer.
Thank you, John. I wanted to. Luis was next, and then Optimal, I think, had a comment as well. Luis, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask, I mean, Well, we do have ways to put things in the graveyard, no? We, for example, in Explorer, we have the what's it? The I forgot the name of give me a second. It's
I was gonna
for example
say
for
some of the
uh,
tools that Abzan Greasefang might use
yeah.
might be some of those
Mhm.
things.
Yeah, I was going to talk. Yeah, how about Grease Funk? I mean, you have a lot of meal upon yourself, and also you have the like the shredded ledger. What's the related name? I forgot it. You draw one card and you
With Connive, yeah, with Connive.
connect. So I think, and in historic we have the new lands we haven't talked about, and then I mean we still have the
At least it's a 1/2 and doesn't die to Bowmasters.
yeah I will survive with master.
That's
I
fair.
think we need to check out, but I think it can be useful. I see it more useful in historic, but I think it could be used also in like in Grisfan for when in Grisfan when you mill your cards, some of the cards you lost them forever. You don't bring a lot of creatures back, so I think it could be an extra use just for killing your opponent, saving some life or mana if you don't fight your Grisfan and you're milling lands and lands and lands. It could give you the mana to hardcast the Esika chariots or something else.
Okay, fair enough. Optimal, what did you have to say?
I know that some decks in Pioneer exist right now in Explorer. I just don't know if any of the decks that keep Deathrite Shaman down are there or not. Because for the most part, it was already mentioned that Deathrite Shaman doesn't see play in Pioneer at all. I mean that could change in the future if we get another reasonable fetch land. And that's kind of like with at least historic, it could be possible it's playable historic, but it also might be too slow.
Okay.
Oh, I was talking about Feral Passage. It can be of some use with that card.
Yeah, but we need a second one. So like Prismatic Vista.
Mhm.
Oh, was Prismatic Vista spoiled?
That's
It
a
was
good
not.
question.
It was
I heard
not.
something about historic with Prismatic Vista. No?
Yeah, I
It was not
guess.
spoiled, unfortunately.
Darn, we
No.
were expecting that,
Oh,
weren't
yeah.
we? I think a number of us called that out.
Yeah, because I was hearing rumbles throughout today that something happened, but then I guess it was fake. Because Prismatic Vista, I would agree would help Deathrite Shaman be a lot more playable.
Yeah.
I posted on Twitter that WotC always saves the historic or the anthologies, the last card. They save the best for last. So like Death Shadow was the last card spoiled in one of the anthologies or whatever. So and I said my favorite or my wish list is, and Prismatic Vista was one of them. As like maybe they'll spoil it. Whatever.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we still have some previews to go.
We have
But
6 of each, not
yeah.
counting the.
I think Deathrite Shaman's gonna see a lot of play.
Why
And
do you?
I'm not trolling.
Okay. A rare not troll.
as Tillerbox laughs.
I think it hits so many relevant things that don't even need to be hit. Like it was mentioned earlier, like the Greasefang matchup, just having a Deathrite Shaman out there, like they're just feeding you things. I think the mindset with Deathrite Shaman that people have is looking back on like those old Golgari decks and like Boomer John decks where you were feeding your own graveyard. I think the context it's going to see play in is just this card that's coming in out of the sideboard post game and just eats things out of your opponent's graveyard, like a stinky little scavenging ooze, but better. You have like the channel lands, the cycle lands that are just gonna like give you mana later in the game. You have creatures that you want to hit like Atraxa and Greasefang, instants and sorceries with flashback. Deathrite Shaman's gonna see a lot of play, I think, and I'm surprised people are hating on it.
Well, you already have access to unlicensed Hearse.
Yeah, but
And
that's not
a lot
Deathrite.
of decks are not even playing Hearse anymore, kind of. And then you
Yeah.
have Rest in Peace and White, which just right.
Yeah, I know.
I do. So I could see a world where, I mean, I'm not specifically saying just for, you know, like Greasefang matchup or whatever, but if we're talking specifically about that, Greasefang actually has a hard time dealing with Deathrite Shaman if they don't have exactly Fatal Push out of the sideboard, because they can't Witherbloom command it because it's a 1/2, and Witherbloom command is like their one way of answering all the stuff, right? Because they have to answer Hearst, they have to answer Rest in Peace. Witherbloom command does that, and this might be a juke out of the sideboard where it's like you better have push or this is going to eat your graveyard alive, and it helps you, like, helps you accelerate if they put lands in the graveyard if they have to.
There's
Good
also Leyline the Void that people play.
I think that card is largely unplayable, but everyone keeps playing it.
I
How's-
agree.
I was gonna say y'all agree on that. I've heard you express that opinion before. Leyline at the Void.
But yeah, you need like Fatal Push, and like Rakdos Sack only has like what? Push, clean the first board. I don't know. When you're getting pressured to have your Cauldron Familiars hit or your Croxa hit, like you need to have an answer so quick. Because you don't even have like with like Tyvar, just like what? Being able does Tyvar give stuff haste, right?
No,
Not exactly.
It's not haste, it's just your activated abilities can be activated as though they had haste.
Is Deathrite Shaman better because of Tyvar?
We have to get Tyler down first.
Yeah, hadn't thought of
We
that.
haven't tried that yet.
I think that's what's missing. Is it's like you have a card like Tyvar that makes these abilities so good, and then Deathrite Shaman's coming into Explorer, and it's not necessarily like is it playable in Pioneer, but like in the scope of Explorer with Tyvar, I think it's really good, and I think people are going to be shocked. I'm expecting at least one person on Twitter to want it like viciously banned, and them to get
So-
laughed at.
Oh, of course, that goes without saying.
There's always one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for talking about this card at length, because I think there's more to be said, and it depends on what gets released, as with anything else. Let's go ahead and move on to the next card. There's already been some discussion on MTG Twitter. Speaking of MTG Twitter, but go ahead and talk to us about this next card. And John,
right.
yeah, go ahead.
Voice of Resurgence. It's back. Resurging. 1 green, 1 white, elemental, 2/2. When an opponent casts a spell during your turn, and when Voice of Resurgence dies, create a green-white elemental creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. This is from, I think there's maybe one deck that plays it, and possibly a second. But yeah, this is, it was going to be needed anyway because it's part of Pioneer. But again, how much of it we'll see play in the Explorer Pioneer format remains to be seen. There's been a couple of one elemental deck that's been gaining popularity, one either top 8'd or top 4'd or won a challenge recently, Pioneer, and then people were playing the green white vehicles deck. I don't know if that's better than the Gruul version. Gruul version has like a Crone War, which is lights out against majority of like big creature decks in mono green. And Stealing Shieldred is not bad either.
What's everybody else's thoughts on this card? It doesn't see a lot of Pioneer play, does it? Optimal, maybe you can help me out here.
Yeah, I think Voice of Resurgence is very underplayed, but I think that's also due to the fact that green-white as a color combination is in Pioneer is very much underrepresented.
Okay, that makes sense. Does this see any kind of impact in the format overall? Anybody else want to give us some thoughts?
Just green white is just so bad. Like the removal is just bad. Yeah, you got lay down arms, and you got you don't get to play the best removal spell White had, which is Leyline Binding. So, which is the other elemental deck that is seen play with like Omnaths and stuff. But that's a little bit more mid rangey, and I'm pretty sure that deck plays Bring to Light, which we haven't seen yet. So
Makes sense. Makes sense. Luis, did you have a thought?
It could be just like a cyber option against Azorius, I suppose, against control decks. But I don't see where this can go, honestly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I feel like there's a consensus around this card. All right. Talk to us about the next one, Court of Calling. What's going on with this card? What's the hype around it? Is it deserved?
oh man, this card's gonna make some waves. Court of Calling. 3 green X instant Convoke. Convoke is you tap a creature, an untapped creature you control, and you pay X or 1 color if the creature is color. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So the majority of the creature decks in Pioneer that play Court of Calling, the majority of them are Elves decks. Not all of them. And outside of that, in Explorer Pioneer, that's not really where I am excited for it. Where I'm excited for it is Historic, because you can now, instead of playing Collected Company, which you can play in tandem with Court of Calling, but now you can play this, Samwise combo with Court of Calling with just a bunch of creatures, and it's a better search engine than Diabolic Intent or Assemble the Team are, because you're searching for the creature that you need, and you're also putting into play, and you're doing it at instant speed. The only problem with Court of Calling right now is we don't have Wall of Roots, which is like a mainstay staple in Court of Calling decks. So I'm interested to see how this plays out without Wall of Roots in Historic, along with how it plays out in Explorer, but I'm more excited for this in Historic.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Who? Let's move on to the next card. Who wants this card? Like, what deck wants this card? That's my question, and maybe you guys can help me answer it.
I don't know if anybody wants to just like skip this after I read it, but Cyclonic Rift, 1 blue, 1 colorless, instant, return target non-land permanent you don't control, to its owner's hand. Overload, pay the overload cost, which is 6 and a blue, and you change from just replacing target with each. So instead of target, it's each non-land permanent for 7 mana. I pretty much believe that they printed this for Historic Brawl. Can we move on?
Oh yeah, we can. Unless anybody else has any comments. Go ahead, TB. Go ahead.
I'm not trolling. I actually like it.
All right, talk to us. Talk to us. Be a lawyer.
It hits children.
It does.
It hits any non-land permanent. That's fine. I don't get what the big deal is. There's a lot of hate for it. I understand, like, people look at the overload and they see that as like why this card is primarily played, and they're not wrong. But like, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand is really good. I like it. I think it's okay. I don't think it should be a rare. I think they should have downshifted it.
Agreed.
It is fucking asinine, absurd rare. Absolutely should not be a rare. But I think it's fine, and I think people are being really, really mad. Just don't craft it. Don't play it. I don't know. It's gonna be fun in Cube, I'm sure.
Optimal MTG. Would you have?
I do agree that this card is unplayable in anywhere outside of Modern and Commander / Brawl. But however, we're talking about Arena Ladder here, right? And we all know the things that happen sometimes on ladder. So what is the likelihood that Lotus Field players, with a card that we're going to talk about in a moment, what do you think the likelihood that some of these people just early on, first couple of weeks, are just going to have that singleton Cyclonic Rift to just hose people?
That's fair.
I think they're going to have it Historic too. There are so many like rampy Simic decks in Historic to where like a one of Cyclonic Rift is not a thing to have.
I can actually get behind that. As in,
It's not that bad. It's like an okay.
no, it really it's
thing
not.
to
Like,
have.
so you get your like your own upheaval, but without
Yeah.
having upheaval. I
Yeah,
can see
I
that.
think that's the problem. Is it's like it's not good, but it's also like it's okay. It's not worth more than a single rare. Like if you get it in a pack, I don't think you'd be upset, but you wouldn't craft it. I think
Right.
that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, like not all decks that would play Cyclonic Rift would just be like, well, I think Brazen Borrower is just better. Like there might be times where you don't want, a 3/1. Like I could see that. Like you don't want the 3/1, you just want to be able to just upheaval your opponent. Which I can see.
Did I just witness a 12 angry men like of this card? Y'all are crazy.
Yeah, that's what I do.
No, like I am
Okay.
100%. I am 100%. They printed this for Historic Brawl, but like that doesn't
Sure,
mean that
sure.
it can't like
Yeah,
that it can't see play.
that's fair.
But-
That's fair. Now,
Like-
Abbot of Carol Keep. We obviously know what this is for, but does it have any value outside the obvious? What's going on with this card?
1 red, 1 colorless, 2/1 prowess human monk. When Abbot of Carol keep this out of my format, hashtag enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card. The only reason this was printed was for, well, actually 2 reasons, although I don't know why the second reason would make any sense. But the first reason is Boros Pia from March of the Machine Aftermath is seeing a lot of popularity or gaining a lot of popularity. Won a challenge this past weekend. I don't know if that deck actually plays Abbott, but Abbott has been seeing play in that deck. And the other reason is for Cube. I have no idea why else this card was put in here outside of nostalgia reasons that it was in mono red way back when.
Those are actually kind of my thoughts. Anybody else want to speak on this one?
Yeah, it's a weird reprint for me. But maybe it should have been an historic one. But I like
Ooh.
because I imagine historic. It will be a card that could see some amount of play minorly, right?
No,
No,
no.
Red deck?
It's too slow. It's too weak. Dies the Bowmaster and like
Oh
too
my
slow.
god. Are we going to have to start saying dies to Bowmaster? Is that
We
thing
are.
now?
I think what's interesting about Abbott is it's a monk. No, wait, I'm wrong. It is a monk, but I'm thinking of something else. No, the card's bad.
They wanted to say wizard. Like, is it a wizard
No,
or a
I
shaman?
thought it was a shaman. It's a monk though. I'm like, oh no, never mind. I
Oh,
was like,
Army Prodigy or whatever it's
shamans
called?
play with it, but
Yeah,
Terrible.
Orcish Bowmaster tears this apart. All right, let's move on to the one we want to talk about and have already kind of talked about, World Spine Worm. What's going on with
I'm
this
gonna
card?
skip it because I was gonna skip it because we already sort of
Fair enough.
talked about him at Tam. But
Fair enough.
before we move on, the reason why Bowmasters is getting like it dies the Bowmaster stuff is because it kills everything, man. Like there's so many X1s in historic, let alone modern or anything else. But like there's a lot of things that just get invalidated by a 2-drop. That's just
Yeah.
the 1/1 that creeps
Design-
Like, it's annoying.
Wizards design choices coming home to roost for sure. Like
Yeah.
for years, making X1s a thing.
It's really annoying, but either
But
way.
yeah.
So next card up, since we talked
Ooh.
about Xenagos and
I want to talk about this one.
One of my one of
Yeah.
my personal favorites. I've died so many times to this card. 1 red, 1 colorless, instant as an additional cost to cast Shrapnel Blast, sacrifice an artifact. Shrapnel Blast deals 5 damage to target creature or player. Oh boy. So whenever I see a card that says deal 5 damage, the first thing I think of is how many times can I cast this and hit Shieldred in the face? Because red decks, if there's a problem, this solves it. In Pioneer, you don't really see the Shrapnel Blast stuff. You do see it every once in a while in like this little like mono red ish. Sometimes you see it in Is It, but we don't have the cards for that, so I'm not going to really mention it. But you also see it in like this black red Oni Cult Anvil synthesizer type deck where they're playing Shrapnel Blast with Cat. You don't really
Yeah,
see that
I
too
dig
often
that one.
anymore. But in Historic though, being able to hit basically all the things you want to hit, and that's Shieldred, Crucius, and many other, 5s or less, which there are a lot of them. So this deals with them. And you don't have to play Rakdos per se. You can play Shrapnel Blast. And being able to hit face is also relevant. So both players in both formats, and people are going to see real fast how getting double Shrapnel Blast at the end of the turn will really upset some new players that have never actually had to experience getting 10 to the face by having a overloaded number of Shrapnel Blasts.
Fair enough. Anybody else have any comments on this one? Optimal, you have a comment?
What does Shrapnel Blast even see play anymore? Like at Modern, at least, right?
Well, I mentioned in Explorer, or excuse me, in Pioneer, you rarely see it. The Synthesizer, Oni Cold Anvil, Artifact, Blast decks that you rarely see. Like, you don't see them anymore.
Is that the only one?
Yeah, and then in modern, you don't really see it too much because you got like better removal spells like Unholy Heat and stuff like that. And
I think it's going to see a lot of play in Historic.
yeah,
Because of Boros Artifacts with Luris is such a good deck as it is already. Being able to just like spend all of your mana on Shrapnel Blast and just Ornithopter over and over again, or Esper Sentinel, and it's kind of like a turn 4 win, not consistent enough to where it's
the major problem with the artifact, the Infinity decks in Historic is like they don't have any reach, and like they're always at like 6 or 5 or 4, and they can't like push in the last few points of damage. That's basically what Shrapnel Blast is. And you don't have like you have what's that stupid card, Machikos, but sometimes you don't have a flyer and you don't have Ginger Brutes. So like Shrapnel Blast is kind of like one of those things that like gets over the top of them in like pinches where they tap out and you're like at the end of your turn, you're just like, here, deal 5 and kill you. So yeah.
Very cool. Definitely need that to go over the top. Thespian Stage. Talk to us about why that card's relevant. I know there's some people excited about it. Who's excited about this card?
I am, but Thespian Stage. Thespian Stage is a land. Tap Atticolus. 2 tap. Thespian Stage becomes a copy of target land and gains this ability. So essentially, you can continuously change Thespian Stage into whatever land on the battlefield. Obviously, everybody knows that you're using this in tandem with Lotus Field, and Turtle Box with the emote. But Explorer, Pioneer, that's the only thing it's used in, and we don't have very many cards. We don't have Sylvan Scrying, we don't have Hidden Strings, and that's really the crux, is we don't have those for the Lotus Field deck. And then Historic, same thing. You're going to use it with the only good land, or utility land that's in there, and that's Lotus Field. The cool thing though is there might be something other than blue-white with it. That's not to say that that's the first thought that most people are going to start with, is blue-white with Thespian Sage and Lotus Field. But you got Elvish Reclaimer, which is also in Pioneer, but you might have more relevant reasons to use it. But again, that's really the only thing I can think of. But still, now you have to, as more lands come into the format, you're going to have to worry about Thespian Stage.
TB, what's going on with this card?
What? Sorry, I found out you can put emotes in the chat thingy.
That's how we've been raising our hands. I thought you were raising your hand.
I might have just found out Discord has emotes.
Oh, I love it. There's sounds too. Optimal MTG, you had something to say. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I feel like personally this is the biggest reveal for this anthology set. Like getting to complete, like the blue-white Lotus Field is complete now on Arena, right? Like there's nothing missing.
Yes.
That deck is going to be everywhere for the next few weeks until people start to like deal with it online. But this is going to be everywhere, and it's going to be so obnoxious when people go turn 2 Proctor, turn 3 Field, or turn 3 play Field, discontinuity, and my like, oh, it's going to drive a lot of people up the wall. and now also there's the Bant version that's been popping up in Pioneer. So I think people are just going to audible right away to the Bant version.
I hadn't thought of that. I just realized we're gonna have to split this episode up into 2. I don't mind doing that actually at all. But let's get to the last card of the Explorer Anthologies 3.
I was gonna say the sets don't drop until the 18th, so yeah. We actually would have the full spoilers on the 16th of July, so
Yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and go through all of it, and I'll just drop these as like a part 1, part 2 for this week, which is fine.
crazy. Eidolon Blossoms, 2 green, 2 colorless, enchantment creature spirit. Oh, I didn't even realize it was a spirit. 2/2, today years old. Constellation, whenever Eidolon or another enchantment creature enters the battlefield, draw a card. Or under your control, excuse me, draw a card. I Historic Brawl and Cube is the only reason why this doesn't see play anywhere else.
Okay.
So it might maybe in Historic, but like you already have the creature that is the 2-drop that draws a card, and then you have the 3-drop that draws a card for an enchantment. And these are on, I think those are on cast. One of them is on cast. The other one is when it enters the battlefield. I don't know if you need, Enchantress Presence, that's the 3-drop, 9, 10, 11, and 12. But hey, maybe you do. Other than that, I'm good.
All
Whatever,
right.
it's a whatever card.
I saw TB throw some modes up there. Do you have anything you want to comment on?
TB has been emoting the entire time.
Oh.
No, I didn't know you could do emotes in this thing. They're so cool. I have a bunch of apparently I have a
Just
bunch of emotes. I have a bunch of emotes of Ernest P. Worrell. I don't know why.
I love it.
This is the emote stream now.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Optimal, do you have any comments?
This is for Eidolon Blossoms, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
think that. This is just filler.
Fair enough. I think so too.
There's not even chain to the rocks yet. We need that card.
All right, fair enough. All right.